And Elaine is here.
Yep, I'm here. Hi.
Hi. We're waiting for our fearless chair.
We are also live.
Excellent.
So
hello, my baby. Hello, my darling.
And Michael Sweeney.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Oriole?
We're just waiting for Leslie.
Okay.
Wow. Your head's kind of spacey there, Sweeney.
Jeez. Yeah.
Is that just me or was his head melting?
Oh, you're seeing the aurora, that's for sure.
Yeah. The aurora in there.
Yeah.
But his head was involved in the melting of the.
You wanted to see all my head? Is that what you're trying to say?
No, it was kind of going with the skies. So.
Oh.
That was something I took. I thought it was something I took.
Hey, there you are. In person.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good. Nice to see you.
Good to be seen. I couldn't get on last meeting.
Yeah, it seems to be somewhat of a hit and miss. We had a couple of council members dropped at the last meeting. They couldn't get back on.
So Michael, just so you're aware, we have Access Humboldt on, and Tyler has arranged with them so that we began airing at 5:30 p.m. We are still waiting for Leslie, I believe, but you do have a quorum.
We have a quorum, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Rex, you're there.
So are you suggesting we start?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I haven't heard anything from her. I haven't received any emails. Tyler, have you heard anything from Leslie?
I have not heard anything. She just got in.
Oh, okay. Excellent. She's here.
Good, good.
You have a full board.
Okay, very good. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the June 11th meeting of the Humboldt Waste Management Authority Board of Directors. The Humboldt Waste Management Board of Directors meeting is being held telephonically in an effort to reduce the spread of COVID virus. Callers joining us by phone, when you are asked, please identify yourself by name. We are able to see the number you are calling from, but would prefer to identify you by name when asking for comment or input. A few teleconferencing tips before we start. Just a reminder, when board members and other participants are not actively speaking, please mute your microphone. The meeting will be difficult to hear if phones ring or dogs bark, both of which I have. And microphones are not muted except for the individual speaking. All votes will be taken through a roll call vote. I'll ask Tyler to go down a roll call at such time. Please be sure to unmute your computer and answer A or nay when your name is called. Public comment was accepted via email and in writing for both specific agenda items and general comments until 3 p.m. today. Comments and specific agenda items will be read by staff during the agenda item. Written emailed comment or public comment will be read under item 3, public comment. So let's begin with roll call, please. Tyler.
Wilson?
Here.
Herrera?
Here.
Hogan?
Here.
Bone?
10-4.
Castellano?
Here.
Sweeney?
Here. Thank you all. So next item is the consent calendar. All matters on the consent calendar are considered to be routine by the board of directors and are enacted in one motion. There's no separate discussion of any of these items. Discussion is required that item be removed from the consent calendar and is considered separately. At the end of the reading of the consent calendar, board members or members of the public can request that an item be removed for separate discussion. I will read these very quickly. find them. Where'd they go? Oh, here they are. Okay. Items under the consent calendar this evening include item A, approved minutes from the May 14th HWMA board meeting. Item B, approved March 2020 financial reports. Item C, approved April 2020 financial reports. Item D, approved Board of Directors calendar for fiscal year 2020-2021. And item E, approved format updates and minor edits to HWMA job descriptions. Are there any comments or questions from board members on any consent calendar item? Can we go down the roll call on this one also, Tyler?
Yes, Wilson,
No.
Pereira,
No.
Hogan,
No.
Bone,
No.
Castellano,
Nope.
Sweeney.
And no for me as well. Are there any comments from the public regarding the consent calendar? Jill, have you received any?
I have not received any. Tyler,
Okay.
did you receive any?
I have not.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Any final comments or questions from the board, starting with Director Bone? No? Okay.
No, happy COVID and mask wearing, folks.
Yeah, got it. Okay, any other comments from people? Thank you. I would now entertain an motion to approve the consent calendar. Is there a motion? We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
And we have a second. I will call the roll call vote. Did you get those, Tyler, or staff? Who moved and who seconded? Sophia and Leslie?
Yeah, I got that.
Okay.
Thank you.
I will now call for a roll call again. Tyler, please.
Wilson,
Yes.
Pereira,
Aye.
Hogan,
Yes.
Bone,
Yes.
Castellano,
Aye.
Sweeney.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, next item on our agenda is oral and written communications. This time is provided for people to address the HWMA board or submit written communications on matters not on the agenda. At the conclusion of all oral and written communications, the board may respond to statements. Any request that requires board action will be set by the board for a future agenda or referred to staff. Have staff received any public comments for this meeting, on this meeting this afternoon?
No, we have not.
Okay. Item 4, nominate and elect officers for fiscal year 2020-2021. Another year has passed and we need to discuss nomination and election of board officers. I will now ask for any questions or comments from council using the roll call list.
Wilson,
I have no comment.
Pereira,
My questions would be for our chair and vice chair, if they have an interest in continuing in these roles. So I think that would just be helpful to know for the nomination process.
Definitely. Well, currently I do not plan for running for mayor again, so I would be off the council and out of the mayor's seat. So I probably after November would not be available to chair the meeting.
And I am probably going to run. I haven't made up a final decision. This is my last year, unless I run in 2020. But it looks like I probably will. Is the way things are going. So we'll have to see how that goes. Otherwise, I would be off the council at the end of 2000 or the end of, I guess, December, if I'm not reelected or if I don't run. So you might want to consider that when you have somebody be your chair or vice chair, that somebody that's going to be here for at least another year.
Mr. Chairman, if I could suggest, I don't see people jumping in real fast. We could go ahead and extend for the purpose of December, and then take up elections in January for that 6-month period. I don't have a sense of other candidate or other board members and whether they're wanting to continue if they have elections coming up. I don't know. I'm sorry, I lost that. But that could be an option as far as extending, or if there are other board members who are interested in requesting nomination.
Okay. So any board member particularly interested in becoming chair or vice chair at this point in time?
Through the chair, I'd like to make a motion that we extend the current slate of officers to the end of December and address that situation at the end of December with the current slate of officers.
Okay, we have a motion to extend the current slate of officers through the end of the year. Is there a second? Well, I will second that. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye using the roll call vote, please.
Wilson,
Aye.
Herrera,
Aye.
Hogan,
Aye.
Bone,
Tempor.
Castellano,
Aye.
Sweeney.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, that's moving through this pretty quickly this evening. Item 5, approve resolution 2020-2021 amending the integrated waste management fee for the recycling processing marketing service fees. And we'll start with a report from our executive director.
As board members will recall, when we approved the integrated waste management fee in May, we did put a placeholder onto table 10, which is the recycling processing fee, so that HWMA and Recology, we would continue our conversations, which we did, along with HWMA securing the services of a financial consultant to review and perform just a rate validation study. And the information came back, and essentially, to cut to the chase, there's two things. One is that based on that financial consultant study, we're recommending that the board approve a 6% rate increase of $3.97 per ton, which will bring up the total to $73.57 a ton for the recycling processing fee. And we received a letter from Linda Wise, General Manager of Recology. I believe all of you received that yesterday. And just to, again, capture overall intent, they do support. And I appreciate, her willingness to be, working towards good faith to resolve some of these issues. And we'll be able to continue our conversations around how we can smooth out the process for next year, because there'll be a few more items that we'll need to discuss. So the long and the short is I would encourage board members to invite Linda to make any questions that she may have around this, but otherwise our recommendation remains as far as that rate increase of 6% based on the work our staff has performed as well as the financial consultant.
Jill, would you suggest we invite Linda to speak prior to going through the board members?
I would suggest just asking the board members if they have any comments based on the staff report that they have in their hand, and then to open it up for public comment so that Linda or anybody else could address the board at that time.
Yes. Okay, good. All right. So do any council members have questions or comments using the roll call?
Wilson,
Yes, is the accountant that is mentioned in Ms. Wise correspondence the consultant that we hired to do this?
Yeah, we hired Joe Arch, who is the person who performs our regular audits, and it's something, when I contacted him, I asked if he had experience, and if he didn't have experience, if he could recommend somebody. As it turns out, he's had some experience in reviewing these kinds of rate applications. So we secured his service in Linda's email, she refers to him as an independent auditor. However, HWMA secured his services, and he's our financial consultant. He is an independent auditor in terms of his business, JJACH. I can't get there. I'm sorry. JJACPA. So that is his independent consulting firm.
That's, I read her letter, and I'll be interested in her comment. But other than that, I have no question.
Rara?
No questions or comments at this time. Thank you.
Bone?
No, not at this moment. I want to hear from Linda. Ms. Wise.
Hogan?
Yeah, same. I don't have anything at this time, but we'll be interested to hear more from Recology.
Castellano?
That applies for me as well. No questions right now.
And Sweeney?
Yes, I would share that sentiment. I'd like to hear it from Linda and then maybe return to the board if they still have questions or comments. So Linda, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thank you. Yeah, I'm sorry I don't have my face on. I've got a messy office.
That's all right. That's all right.
Well, thank you for having me speak to this. Again, we are completely interested in maintaining, good working relationships with the HWMA and its members. And since the report that was generated and given us a courtesy copy, we had a lot to consider around that. And really, what was it, what was worth to be able to go forward and to kind of put the brakes on this. But we will go ahead and go along with the 6% increase, but I want to make that clear that that was not a number that we arrived at. Under normal circumstances, when there's discussions upon, on these numbers, there's a lot of back and forth. We had no discussion with the accountant, no request for information to support their findings, and I'm kind of unclear where they came up with some of their numbers. We are hoping that we get on track so that we can get on a rate process where we don't go in this direction again next year. I'll just let you know that one of the biggest things that came up in some of our discussions with it was whether our hauling costs were accurate. And it is a number that was difficult to arrive at because we were during a time when we were doing a lot of construction, and there was a lot more contamination, and we were using our own transportation for storing the materials. So we teased out a lot of numbers. We understood that this could have been confusing, but we were on hand to answer these questions, but did not get any requests for that information. We're hoping that next year we will get on track and get this the application better understood. We do want to let you guys know that we will be coming back, and it's likely that we will be at a freight number that's closer to the $42.58. Other than that, we love working with all of you, and we want to help further the waste diversion goals for this community, and when stand in the way in any way to prevent that from happening, and recognize that relationships are important, and that's the reason why we're going down this path.
Okay, thank you, Linda. Back to the board. Do any members have any questions or comments in response to Linda's presentation? Yes, Leslie.
I suppose I just have the question of where the auditor did get the numbers, or how the auditor received information.
So to respond to that, we had the first application come in on February 6th. We had granted Recology an extension because it was supposed to be submitted by February 1st. And we had 3 revisions submitted to us, and each revision we were encountering difficulty in the course of that. I don't really want to rehash that because we did talk about that in April. So the information that the auditor received was the third and final revision. So he used the information and the documentation that was provided by Recology. And Linda's correct, you know, he didn't contact her, but by the same token, he did not contact us either. His job was to review the agreement along with the numbers, as well as Appendix C, which contains sort of like the base assumptions that we were moving forward with. And, you know, in both cases, both what we were addressing in April when we spoke with the board was we didn't have the supporting information for the request. As we had discussed with Linda, we believe that the freight to market number does need to be adjusted. However, we can only get to a certain point. So we just weren't seeing the full documentation necessary to support that. And there were a few other items that were like that. So it was actually kind of painful for us. So now that we're gonna move past this one, we'll be able to sit down and try to figure out how to better package the information. Because the other thing that really came out, and I really appreciate that Linda and I can sit down and we can hash things out really well. In the course of a verbal narrative, there's some good explanations, but on the basis of the documents that we were provided, we couldn't get there. So we really just need to have a stronger application package being submitted every year, because I'm not going to be here forever. Linda's not going to be there forever, you know? And so making sure that we have just a really strong, you know, sort of, you know, process that's been put in that is transparent for the board and the public to understand how and why rates are being adjusted.
Thank you, Jill. Any other comments from board members?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, Frank.
I appreciate Recology resolution to this, that they, you know, I hear their objection. And I look forward that we're going to be able to do as Director Duffy said, that we can get better documentation and we can lay this out. And I am concerned with the overall picture of recycling in the nation and the world, that there's the emphasis that we had on it prior, like I don't know if it was this meeting or it might have been RCEA, that, you know, 6 months ago we were worried about the world was going to end because of climate change, and now we're dealing with this pandemic that we have no idea really where the end of it is. But one of the victims in this, it was already coming along, was recycling. And the recycling thing is something that we want to preserve, and we want to make sure that we're getting a fair rate for our ratepayers, but we're also being able to take care of the limited resources that are around the nation and the state in particular in this area that haul this stuff off and make this work for everybody. So I look forward to our director and Recology working through this, get better documentation, and I appreciate the agreement we have, and I look just forward to moving forward. You know, thank you for all the parties and the work they've done.
And thank you, Frank. Any other comments from directors? You have a comment, Rex?
No, I just think we're pretty fortunate up here. I mean, a lot of agencies don't get along with the people that they, you know, the agencies they work with, the people running the trash collection and everything else. And I don't think people realize how fortunate we are that, you know, in this position, Recology with Linda, and in all honesty, with the previous managers there, we've been very fortunate. And the same thing with the previous managers at HWMA. You know, currently Jill and Linda are. They talk a lot. There's a lot of go-between, and it creates a lot of good feelings in the public, and it makes our job a lot easier. And I don't think we realize how easy it is because of the job they do. So I for one, am very thankful, and I know they step up whenever they can for all of, you know, for this agency, and Linda does everything she can to make our lives easier as municipalities. So thank you, guys. That's about it.
Yeah, okay. Any other director comments? Seeing none, were there any comments from the public on this agenda item, Jill?
I received no comments other than the letter that you all have.
Right, okay. All right, well, with that, can I entertain a motion to approve resolution 2021-02, amending the integrated waste management fee for the recycling processing marketing services fees?
Make a motion to approve resolution 2021-02, amending the integrated waste management fees for recycling, processing, and marketing service fees.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a second. I will now call for a vote using roll call. Tyler, please.
Wilson,
Aye.
Pereira,
Aye.
Hogan,
Aye.
Bone,
You bet.
Castellano,
Aye.
Sweeney.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you all for that. The next item on our agenda is board member reports. And let's use a roll call for board member reports as well, please, Tyler.
Wilson,
I have nothing to report.
Pereira,
No report. Thank you.
Hogan,
Nothing to report.
Bone,
I'm good.
Castellano,
Just a quick thing. I've been hearing a lot of questions in the community about recycling. For some reason, the pandemic seems to have prompted some thought that like things aren't getting recycled, or questioning if CRV is coming back, just things like that. So nothing specifically to report, but people seem to be bringing those questions to me fairly regularly.
and Sweeney.
No report from myself. All right, the next item, agenda 6, is executive director report. So back to Jill.
Absolutely. And I have a list of things for you this evening, and that will include the more recent update to recycling as it pertains to CRV. I do want to just quickly thank Humboldt Access for being able to get us all online. I think a couple of our council members may or may not know that they are actively being aired live, which is really great. It's kind of becoming more normal. So thank you to Access Humboldt for working with us to make this happen. With respect to some recent activities, a few big things for the board members to know is that first and foremost, every 5 years, Humboldt Waste Management Authority has to prepare and submit a solid waste facility permit to the county LEA, the North Coast Regional Water Quality Control Board, as well as Cal Recycle, and in our case, the City of Eureka's Planning Department as a courtesy review. And it's a 5-year renewal permit that basically describes all of our operations that are done at the transfer station. That does not include the Eureka Recycling Center or the household hazardous waste facility, because those are handled under separate permits. We have our internal draft, which is currently under review, and we are working to have the deadline of July 20th met. So we're actively working on this right now. On the stormwater front, we have some exciting news, which is that we had our final sample that was taken at the end of May, and our overall average, since that stormwater treatment system has been installed, between the BMPs and the ongoing visual monitoring and corrective actions that have been taken by our staff, we have seen a pretty significant improvement in our numeric action levels and the parameters. So with the exception of one parameter, we are now meeting the numeric action level for all parameters. And we do continue to have a slight exceedance of iron, but it too has dropped significantly as we've been going through this whole process. So we'll be finalizing our annual report in the next couple of weeks. It'll be submitted to the State Water Resources Control Board. Overall, we're moving into a nice state of compliance. This starts getting at Rex's question that we had offline, and that is HWMA's Hawthorne Street Transfer Station, along with Humboldt Sanitation and Recology, the three transfer stations, the essential service that they all provide is the acceptance of solid waste for landfill disposal, of course, as well as any other activities that we're doing for diversion purposes. We are all required to submit a restoration plan. So even though we never closed, we still have to submit a restoration plan to the County Office of Emergency Services. We're all a little bit more complicated in that certain activities that we are involved in don't necessarily fall under essential. And the non-essential services for HWMA has been the recycling center and the HHW, and then of course we restricted access to the main business office. So we have submitted our restoration plan to the county for review, and that is being actively processed. We've received one question, and we're going to be addressing that one shortly. And the plan that we have does track with the state's reopening under certain risk categories. So again, our priority right now is to continue for the operations of the solid waste. And if you've taken a look at the financial report that Tyler put into the packet, there's a pretty detailed discussion about how much traffic we have seen in terms of the number of vehicles coming into our facility during this pandemic. And it's been pretty stressful for all of our staff. We have continued to accept mixed waste recycling. We have also continued to accept appliances and e-waste and other items, and all of that has been handled over on the transfer station side. So we too are looking forward to the reopening of the Eureka Recycling Center, because it begins to lessen some of the burdens on us. So as far as Eureka Recycling Center, some key things that board members need to be aware of as you're having conversations with members of the public. One is that we are waiting for Cal Recycle to complete and approve our certification permit to operate a CRV center. Our CRV certification expired on May 31st. We submitted the initial application in March. Because of COVID, it disappeared somewhere. And so we had to resubmit that information. So we are waiting for Cal Recycle to complete their review. And in the meantime, we're doing our best to navigate this sort of world. I mean, we did basically, like everybody else, a hard close. And one of the hardest things that we're encountering is to simply reopening is not an option, because we are now living in a COVID world. So we're having to implement traffic control. We're having to ensure social distancing, proper signage to make sure that people are aware that they need to have masks on. We're going to need material to be pre-sorted before it comes into our facilities. Sitting down outside in the parking lot and sorting out cans is no longer going to be an option. We need to have materials pre-sorted so that we have minimal interactions between customers as well as staff. We'll also need to make sure that we have sanitation stations. So there's a lot that's going into kind of this reopening for the Eureka Recycling Center. The other component is that the governor issued an executive order to all recycling centers and CRV redemption sites that are operated by grocery stores so that they can amend their hours or remain closed until June 21st. The concern here is that unlike solid waste, which is all being handled through automated systems and minimal physical contact or employee exposure, we're taking material by hand that has been in proximity to people's mouths and whatnot. So there's a possibility of contamination and transmission. So we're trying to ensure that we don't become a transmission pathway for the community as people are bringing in material. We don't know where it's coming from or anything else. So it's something that we are trying to navigate, and it is something that the governor recognizes. It hasn't been addressed explicitly in the public health officer's orders, but we are tracking what the governor is doing on that. In terms of some of the activities over at the Eureka Recycling Center, the facility has been power washed. We are looking at doing a new layout, which facilitates, again, better flow of people coming in and orientation of our recycling shack. And it will ensure social distancing and just more orderly formation of folks. The parking lot is needing repairs and striping. And so we are working with a contractor right now in order to get that design and striping completed. We'll have designated ingress and egress points. So again, controlling how people are moving through our facility to minimize their interactions with each other. One of the issues that we have encountered as we've been having these conversations about reopening is that reopening is also triggering review from a ADA perspective. Our parking lot does not meet ADA compliance standards. In particular, we don't have a designated handicap parking area. And where we'll need to put it, we're going to have to construct an elevated concrete pad that meets the slope requirements. Currently, our certain areas of the parking lot can go up to 5% grade, and that's unacceptable as far as ADA compliance is concerned. So we are working on that, finishing up some designs, and then we'll need to secure a contractor who can work on that. We're also looking at the additional materials and the PPE and potential increase in staffing in order to ensure that we have adequate personnel to operate the transfer station and the recycling center. We're going to be coming to the board in July with some more detailed information around some of the costs that have been associated with the operations of the Eureka Recycling Center and our CRV buyback activities. On another note, the waste characterization report, the study was initiated, I should say, in February. And as I had indicated at the last meeting when we extended their agreement, they're working on their preliminary report based on the data that came forward in February. And we will then, once it's completed, we'll be distributing it to the board as well as our member agencies until we're able to do the next round of sampling. So that way people have the most relevant waste characterization data from our communities, and they could be making decisions around AB 1383 activities and things like this and programs that need to be developed. We, being myself, Linda Wise, and Tasha Eisner from Humboldt Sanitation, met with Senator McGuire's office yesterday in order to talk specifically around CRV buyback. Here in Humboldt County, there are 23 designated convenience zones. Convenience zones are those areas where retailers are obligated to accept and process CRV materials. A lot of you might remember that once upon a time, you would take your cans and your bottles and you would go to your grocery store in order to redeem them. Over the years, Cal Recycle has granted exemptions to those grocers from having to operate CRV buyback. So 78% of the convenience zones now have been granted exceptions, and all of the private CRV facilities have closed in the last 5 years, leaving Humboldt Waste Management Authority, Humboldt Sanitation, and Recology. The rub is that our primary core essential purpose is to be handling solid waste that's generated from the franchise haulers and the general public. And so we're all trying to navigate. All of the recycling centers are indeed closed, as are most CRV recycling centers in California. I've talked to a couple that are open, and those that have been open are would be characterized primarily as more rural, and they had very low numbers of clientele that were coming in the course of their business. A number of CRV facilities are actually not reopening because of a number of issues, which I'll get into next month. So we did provide a briefing to Senator McGuire's office about this. And again, we'll be presenting some information for the board in July, more specific conversations around this. We were also notified yesterday, we were anticipating that there would be a significant rehab project that would be finally done on Hawthorne and Felt Street. It was initially identified by HCOG and the California Transportation Commission for improvement back in 2008. And the project has been pushed back yet another year. So we're not looking at seeing that move forward until next year. That said, City of Eureka engineers got a hold of me yesterday, and they are talking about design, so they're wanting us to weigh in. because they anticipate finishing their environmental review, their project design, as well as their bid contracts so that they can secure the award of the money by this fall. So that way they're all lined up, ready to go next year, which is a significant step forward from where we've been, in the past. So unfortunately, we were hoping that this was going to be finally done this year, and it's going to get kicked back for a year. One other item jumps back to CRV a bit, which was after the May meeting. Recology, Humboldt Sanitation, and ourselves, we jointly issued a press release in order to just describe to the general public what the status of all of our operations are, from collection services, as well as the transfer stations and the recycling centers. I don't know if it was just a perfect storm of different things that have happened, but it went out. The only person who picked it up and ran with it was Kim Kemp from Redheaded Black Belt. Linda was able to contact some folks at KIEM TV. They did come out. We did an interview with them. It did air, but we have not been able to get any of the other news outlets to pick the story up. We also provided the information to all the member agency staff so that way, if they were contacted by constituents, hey, what's going on with this? They had the most recent information. I didn't get a chance to talk to Linda today. Linda, don't be surprised. I'm thinking, let's go ahead and massage the joint press release and send it around again, because maybe it'll get picked up this time. So that concludes my report. There's been a lot of other things that have been happening, but that's probably enough for the moment.
Okay, thank you for that, Jill. Do any board members have questions of Jill at this time on her executive director's report? Using the roll call, please.
Wilson?
Yeah, I just have a question for Jill. That when you do get your press release that you send out to the agencies, that you would copy the individual directors as well?
Sure.
Because if you did send that, with everything that's gone on, it may have got overlooked.
Sure.
But if you send it to us, that way we can at least be aware of it and bring it up in a council meeting under council.
That would be great.
Council reports. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Herrera?
No questions. Thank you for a thorough report.
Thank you. Sometimes I think I bore you guys.
Any other? Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Tyler.
Hogan?
I don't have any questions. It's not boring at all. It's always great to hear all the fabulous work that you and staff are doing. So I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Castellano?
Yeah, just thank you for all your diligence and hard work, and yeah, appreciate it.
Bone?
So the question I have is, so if someone calls about what to do with their recycling because it's taking over their garage, what would be the most definitive answer after all that explanation?
Sure. So I think the key thing is to recognize recycling hasn't stopped. So people can bring their mixed recycling, or their recycling can be brought to the transfer station and placed into the mixed waste bin, or they could put it into their curbside collection bin, because all of that material is being processed by Recology under our existing agreement, and the materials are being sorted and they are making it into the recycling market. The bigger issue is that most people are hanging on to their CRV containers. So that's a recyclable material, but it's a recyclable material that has they've paid a 5-cent deposit. And absolutely, they should be getting their 5 cents back. The difficulty is that CalRecycle has been allowing the exemption for all these grocery stores to not take it. And so we're the last one standing, and our primary responsibility is to make sure that we're operating our transfer stations and taking solid waste. So we are working towards reopening, as I said, but if people are feeling like they're getting overwhelmed and swimming through their recyclables, then they need to put it into the recycling bins or bring it down to us, and we'll get it into a recycling bin and it will be recycled. And I would encourage them to contact CalRecycle. And ask for locations that will be mandated to provide that recycling service.
Could that be something that we as a board should probably be taking back to our respective boards and writing letters to our Cal Recycle and our elected officials saying, this is creating an issue. This is, I mean, and
Yes.
they're not going to put it in the curb. It's going to end up in the regular garbage and it's not going to all get through. So it's just going to,
Right.
we're defeating our purpose. And the minute we've done so well over 25 years training people, and if you teach them that it's okay not to do it anymore, they're going to stop doing it. So
Well, we
that
have
zero
definitely,
waste thing is going to kill us.
we have run the gamut in terms of, people's reactions. I think that when we explained to people the reasons that we had to suspend, most people have been pretty understanding. People are frustrated, and I don't blame them. And again, we'll be bringing back an item at the July meeting, and that will certainly be one of the things that we're asking for the board to consider, because it's not just us. The system fundamentally needs an overhaul, and that was one of the reasons that we were talking with Senator McGuire's office. I was talking with an operator last week who's located over in Shasta County, and I asked him how long he can continue to subsidize his operations, and he said 8 months under the current status quo, because a commodity market, the prices have just bottomed out. And he says, I can go 8 months before I have to shut my door. And increasingly, that's what's happening with many operators. And Cal Recycle has just kind of put their head in the sands, and it's been really difficult to get them to be willing to just really wrestle with this big, issue. So it's not just HWMA, it's not just Humboldt County. We have our own challenges trying to get material to market at an affordable cost. But so there we are. We're going to have a fun conversation in July.
Good. I'll look forward to it. Okay. Any other questions, comments?
Just a comment back to what part of what Rex was saying, and along with Jill, is that the state is still collecting the 5% CRV money, and somewhere in there should be a balance to protect the agencies. Well, the one says I'm going to close in 8 months because I'm not able to get money that I turn this stuff over for. There should be some dialogue that say that the agencies get help so they survive through this, because the money is still coming to somebody, and by the amount of bottles and cans that are bought, that's a significant number that's going to the state, and it needs to somehow make its way back to the agencies. Just a comment.
So,
Yeah.
and I appreciate that. I do want to note that it's public and private entities that are being affected, and we all have different, ways of being able to support the operations. And in all honesty, when the commodities market, when the value of the materials is really high, then it paid for the services. So whatever cost you were having, you would end up getting, it would be sufficient to pay for and ensure that there'd be enough of a profit margin that would incentivize people to be engaged in that activity. But about 2013, 14, that's when the shift began. And one by one, a lot of the mom and pop organizations closed their doors. And last year, you may all remember that there was a really large company called Replanet. They shut down over 500 of their recycling centers that were located throughout California. And at that time, I think everybody was anticipating that Cal Recycle would then take on, that's significant, 500 plus recycling centers being closed, that would initiate the conversation around the system that is kind of clunky and broken, and nothing has changed. And so we're all still sort of limping along. And in the meantime, consumers are paying their 5 cents or 10 cents a container, and they're waiting for reimbursement. And they can get it, but those places are becoming few and far between.
Well, it seems like we've had challenges getting the state to talk to us about meeting our diversion goals as well, given the collapse of the recycling product market. And if I recall from previous conversations, they seem to be equally as tone deaf on that issue as this one.
Yeah.
Okay, well, unless somebody has something else that's burning their lips to say, I'd like to thank you all for attending this afternoon's meeting, and I will now adjourn, and we'll see you all in July. Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.